Night crashes down on her like a verdict. The forest is slick with blood and snow, branches clawing at her skin as she runs. Bare feet slam into frozen earth. Every step sends pain screaming up her legs, but she doesn't slow. She can't. The wind howls through the trees, sharp and cutting, and beneath it, closer now, wolves answer back. Not the wild kind. These know her name. These chased her family through fire and smoke and called it justice. Welcome to Moonbound Werewolf Romance Stories. Before we dive in, I'd love your support. Can we hit 150 likes on this story? Also, subscribe, drop a comment, and tell me where you're listening from. Your engagement means everything to me. Her lungs burn. Each breath tastes like iron and cold. She trips, catches herself on a jagged root, and keeps moving. Somewhere behind her, a howl splits the night, close enough that her spine locks with fear. She doesn't look back. Looking back is how people die. Her family's screams won't leave her alone. They rise up inside her head, layered and frantic, then vanish one by one, cut short, as if someone slammed a door on their lives. Her mother's voice breaks last. That's the one that hurts the most. That's the one that makes her chest cave in as she runs. Something flares under her skin. Silver hot. Angry. Alive. It burns along her ribs, curls around her spine, pulses with every heartbeat. She gasps as it surges, almost dropping to her knees. She doesn't know what it is. She was never taught. They never let her learn. All she knows is that it hurts, and it's getting stronger, and it wakes up whenever fear grips her too tight. Snow lashes her face sideways, stinging her eyes. The storm feels personal, like the world itself is trying to push her down and keep her there. She stumbles again, this time hard, sliding toward the edge of a ravine she doesn't see until it opens beneath her like a mouth. She throws herself sideways at the last second and crashes into the bank. The impact knocks the air from her chest. Stars explode behind her eyes. She crawls, nails tearing, until she finds cover beneath a snarl of roots and fallen stone. She presses herself flat, mud and snow soaking through her hair, her skin, her wounds. She doesn't breathe. Shadows sweep past the ravine above her. Massive shapes. For brushing against bark. Yellow eyes cutting through the dark. One pauses. Sniffs the air. Her heart slams so hard she's sure they can hear it. The silver heat inside her flares again, sharp and wild, and she clamps down on a scream, biting her lip until she tastes blood. Please, she thinks. Please keep walking. A low growl rolls over the edge. Another step. Then another. Finally, the shadows move on, their howls fading into the storm as if they were never there at all. She stays frozen long after they're gone. Muscles shaking. Teeth chattering. Tears sliding silently into the dirt. Her whole body aches with the effort of staying alive. They think she's dead. The thought hits her slowly, carefully, like a fragile truth she's afraid to break. They watched the flames take her home. They saw bodies fall. They smelled blood and ash and believed the story they told themselves, that no one survived. They need to keep believing it. She presses a trembling hand to her chest, right over the silver burn that won't cool. It pulses back, steady and stubborn, like a second heart. It scares her more than the wolves do. Because the wolves are outside. This thing is part of her. She doesn't know why she lived when everyone else died. She doesn't know what the pack saw when they looked at her family and decided to erase them. She only knows that something was left unfinished tonight. Something dangerous. Something that chose her. The storm roars overhead, swallowing the sky. Snow fills in her footprints. The forest closes around her, dark and breathing, as if it's hiding her on purpose. And if you love dark, emotional werewolf romances filled with fate, vengeance, and forbidden power, subscribe now to Moonbound Werewolf Romance Stories, because this story has only just begun. She pulls herself deeper beneath the roots, curling around her pain, her fear, her growing fire. Alone. Alive. And changing, whether she wants to or not. Somewhere in the night, the wolves howl again. This time, she listens. Not with fear, but with something new stirring quietly in her chest, waiting for the moment it's finally allowed to answer back. The forest goes quiet in a way that makes her skin prickle. Not peaceful. Controlled. The wind slows. The snow thins. Even the night seems to pause, as if something has stepped into it that refuses to be ignored. She feels it before she sees it, a weight pressing down on the space around her, heavy and deliberate, like a hand closing slowly into a fist. Her silver heat tightens, sharp and alert. Someone is there. She pulls herself out from beneath the roots, fingers curling into claws she doesn't remember earning. Every instinct screams run or kill. There is no middle ground left in her. She turns toward the trees, breath shallow, body coiled to strike. And then he steps out of the storm. Tall. Still. Wrapped in a dark coat dusted with snow that never seems to touch him for long. His presence bends the night around him, like the world has already decided to make room. Power rolls off him in quiet waves, controlled, leashed, but unmistakably lethal. An alpha. Not hers. Not anymore. Her heart slams. She lunges without thinking, a broken cry ripping from her throat as fear takes the shape of violence. She doesn't make it 2 steps. He moves faster than her eyes can follow. One moment she's airborne, the next she's pinned against a tree, his forearm braced beside her head, not touching her, never touching her, but close enough that she feels the heat of him through the cold. He doesn't snarl. Doesn't bare his teeth. He just holds her there, steady as stone. Easy, he says, low and calm, like he's talking to something wounded, not dangerous. She thrashes anyway, fighting with everything she has left. Her silver fire surges, lashing against her ribs, begging to be released. He feels it. She knows he does. His jaw tightens, eyes darkening, not with fear, but with something like awe. Then he speaks her name. The real one. The sound of it freezes her mid-struggle. No one has used that name in years. Not since the night her family died. Not since the pack erased it along with their bodies. Hearing it now is like a blade sliding between her ribs, precise and devastating. Her breath stutters. Her strength falters. How do you know that? She whispers, voice cracked and raw. He releases her immediately, stepping back instead of pressing the advantage. He doesn't chase when she stumbles away. Doesn't reach for her. He just watches, hands loose at his sides, posture open but ready. Like he's been waiting for this moment. For her. Before she can demand answers, the forest explodes with sound. Howls rise again, closer this time. Her hunters have picked up the trail. Panic spikes sharp and fast, silver fire roaring in response. She turns to run. And stops. The alpha steps forward and faces the trees instead. His shoulders square. His spine straightens. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't need to. One growl rolls out of him, deep and absolute, vibrating through the ground itself. It's not a threat. It's a command. The howls falter. Shapes skid to a halt at the tree line. She feels their fear like a shift in the air, a sudden retreating tide. One by one, the shadows pull back, tails tucked, instincts overridden by something older and stronger than hunger. Silence crashes down again. She stares at him, stunned, chest heaving. No one has ever driven them off like that. Not even her former alpha. Especially not without spilling blood. He turns back to her slowly. Up close, she sees the lines carved into his face, not age, but responsibility. Loss. The kind of restraint that only comes from choosing not to be a monster when it would be easier to become one. Their eyes meet. Hers are wild, glassy with shock and grief, silver fire flickering behind them like lightning trapped in a storm. His holds something else entirely. Recognition. And regret. It hits her harder than the fear. Regret means he knew. Regret means he understands what was taken from her. Regret means he was part of the world that let it happen. Her hands curl again, shaking this time. If you're here to finish it, she says, voice barely holding together, do it now. He doesn't move closer. You're alive, he says quietly. The words land like a stone dropped into deep water, sending ripples through everything she thought she knew. Alive. As if survival itself is an act of defiance. That changes everything. She searches his face for lies, for cruelty, for the familiar hunger to control or destroy. She finds none of it. What she sees instead unsettles her more. Purpose. The storm begins to move again, snow drifting softly between them, but neither of them looks away. The forest feels different now, no longer just a place to hide, but a crossroads. She doesn't know who he is. She doesn't know what he wants. But for the first time since the night her world burned, she knows one thing with painful clarity. Being alive was never the end of her story. It was the beginning. He doesn't tell her to follow. He just turns and walks, confident she will. And she does, because staying here feels worse. Because the forest has already taken everything from her once, and she knows better than to trust it again. They move through paths that shouldn't exist. Narrow breaks between stone and root, places where the snow thins as if the ground remembers older rules. He never looks back, but he slows without announcing it, matching his pace to her limp. That alone unsettles her more than the silence. With every step, her past begins to surface. Not all at once. Never like that. It comes in fragments. Sharp. Uninvited. She remembers standing in the center of the pack circle, hands shaking, while the elders argued over her like she wasn't there at all. Words like corruption and tainted blood thrown around as if they were facts, not fear dressed up as law. She remembers her mother's fingers digging into her shoulder, steady and warm, whispering for her to keep her head down, to stay quiet, to survive. Her father begged. She had never seen him kneel before, never heard his voice break like that. He swore loyalty, offered exile, offered his own life if it would spare his children. The council didn't even pretend to consider it. They said the future had to be protected. Her siblings were dragged away while she screamed herself hoarse. One of them reached for her. She remembers that more than the blood. The way his hand slipped from hers when the guards pulled him back. The sound he made when the blade came down behind the hall doors. She wasn't allowed to see their bodies. They told her it was mercy. Her chest tightens now, breath catching as the memory claws its way forward. She presses her hand to her ribs, feeling the silver heat stir in response. It always does when she remembers. Like it remembers too. They spared her because she hadn't changed yet. Because the elders decided her power was dormant. Unawakened. Harmless. They marked her spine with silver and magic, both a warning disguised as protection. A reminder that they were watching. The mark still burns when she's afraid. She feels it now, faint but present, a thin line of fire running just beneath her skin. Legends used to whisper about children born with that sign. Wolves who carried something ancient in their blood. Wolves who didn't belong to any pack for long. She was never meant to hear those stories. She learned the truth anyway. Trust gets you killed. Silence keeps you alive. She lived by those rules. Bent herself small. Swallowed her questions. Let them believe she was weak. Let them forget her. And in the end, it hadn't saved anyone but her. The path narrows. She stumbles, and before she can stop herself, her hand brushes his arm. The contact sends a jolt through her. Not pain. Not fear. Relief. Her breathing stutters, then slowly evens out. The silver ache inside her, constant since the night of the massacre, eases just a fraction. Enough that she notices. Enough that it terrifies her. She pulls her hand back like she's been burned. He stops. Not abruptly. Just enough to acknowledge the shift. He doesn't turn around right away, giving her the space to decide whether she wants to run again. She hates that her body doesn't want to. Hates that standing near him feels easier than standing alone. That the storm seems quieter when he's close. That her instincts, sharpened by grief and loss, don't see him as a threat. I won't hurt you, he says, voice low, measured. Not a promise. A statement. She almost laughs. Hurt is already written into her bones. He can't undo that with words. I don't trust you, she says instead. He nods once, like that's exactly what he expected. You shouldn't. That answer stays with her as they continue on. The forest opens into a shallow ravine where the wind can't reach. He gestures for her to sit. She hesitates, then lowers herself onto a flat stone, wincing as pain catches up with her. He kneels a short distance away, careful not to crowd her, and produces a strip of cloth. His movements are practiced. Gentle. She watches him with narrowed eyes as he binds her ankle. "You know what they said about me," she murmurs, more accusation than question. "Yes." "You know what they did." "Yes." Her jaw tightens. "And you still came." He looks up then, really looks at her. Something heavy settles behind his gaze. "That's why I came." The truth in his voice shakes her more than any lie could. Because it means he saw the injustice. It means he carries it too. She turns her face away, throat burning. The silver heat inside her pulses again, restless and aware. It doesn't lash out this time. It waits. She hates that she feels safer here. Hates that her guard lowers against her will. Hates herself most of all for wanting to believe that maybe, just maybe, not everyone looked at her and saw a curse. The night presses close around them, quiet and watchful. For the first time since she lost everything, she lets herself sit with someone who knows who she really is. And doesn't turn away. They move again before the silence can harden between them. The forest thins as if yielding, trees bowing away from a path that feels less walked than remembered. The air changes first, cooler, cleaner, heavy with something old. The silver ache inside her stirs, not in pain this time, but recognition. It pulls her forward even as fear tightens her chest. The grove opens without warning. Stone pillars rise from the earth in a wide circle, worn smooth by centuries of moonlight and weather. Moss clings to them like a second skin. Symbols are carved deep into the rock, marks older than any pack law, older than the names wolves give themselves to feel permanent. The snow doesn't touch this place. It melts before it lands. She takes one step inside. The ground hums. Not loud, not violent. A low vibration that travels up through her feet, her bones, her spine. The mark at her back ignites, silver heat flaring sharp enough to steal her breath. She gasps and stumbles, catching herself on the nearest stone. The symbols glow. Soft at first, then brighter. Silver answering silver. Her vision fractures. She sees a wolf standing alone beneath a shattered moon, its fur threaded with fire that doesn't burn the ground beneath it. She sees packs kneeling in fear and reverence, their heads bowed or their bodies scattered, smoke curling from the earth where they once stood. She sees blood and light tangled together, impossible to separate. She cries out and drops to her knees. The visions don't stop. They rush through her, relentless. A crown made of flame. A howl that splits the sky. A choice that leaves no one untouched. The last Emberborn, a voice whispers, not his. Older. Many voices layered together. Her hands shake as she presses them to the ground, trying to anchor herself. No, she breathes. This isn't real. He kneels beside her, close now, a steady presence amid the storm tearing through her mind. They said it was a myth, he says quietly. A story meant to scare children into obedience. She laughs, short and broken. They always say that about things they don't understand. The grove answers her with another pulse of light. He takes a breath, like he's bracing himself. My father was one of the last to guard this place. Her head snaps up. The words cut through the haze. Guard it from what? From being forgotten, he says. From being used. His gaze doesn't leave hers. From being found by the wrong people. The truth lands heavy between them. They killed him, he continues, voice tight but controlled. The council. Not for treason. For refusing to give them a name. Her stomach twists. My name. He nods once. I was raised on fragments of a prophecy no one wanted spoken aloud. I was taught what to do if the Emberborn appeared. Her heart hammers. What to do? Find her, he says. Or end her. The words crush the air from her lungs. She tries to stand and fails, legs giving out beneath her. He catches her before she hits the stone, steadying her without pulling her close. Even now, he lets her choose the distance. I can't be this, she whispers. The silver fire inside her churns, restless and furious, like it's listening. I didn't survive to become a weapon. You survived because you are, he says softly. Not unkind. Not proud. Just honest. She shakes her head, tears burning her eyes. You saw what they did to my family. This is what they feared. This is why they killed them. Yes, the admission hurts more than denial ever could. She presses her fists into the ground, breath coming fast. The grove glows brighter, reacting to her turmoil, the stones singing with restrained power. It wants her to stand, to accept, to claim what's waiting. She can't. I'm not a savior, she says, voice breaking as the words rip free. I'm what they feared. I'm the thing they tried to erase. He watches her for a long moment. Then he reaches out, not to the fire, not to the prophecy, but to her trembling hand. Fear doesn't make something evil, he says. It just makes it powerful. The light steadies. The hum softens, like the grove is listening too. She looks up at him, eyes bright with grief and silver flame. Destiny presses close, heavy and unavoidable. The past coils tight around her ribs, the future burning just out of reach. For the first time, she understands the truth she's been running from. Her family didn't die because she was weak. They died because she was never meant to be. The grove doesn't shatter when the world pushes back. It fractures. The first warning isn't sound. It's pressure. The air tightens, sharp and crowded, as if too many alphas have stepped into the same breath. The stones dim, their glow retreating like a held breath. Her silver fire flares in warning, hot and angry beneath her skin. He rises instantly, body turning toward the tree line, shoulders squared. We've been found. She doesn't ask how. She feels them now, multiple presences slamming against the edge of the grove, raw dominance scraping like claws against ancient wards. The forest recoils. Snow explodes outward as figures step through barriers that were never meant to be crossed. Rival alphas. 3 of them. Then more behind. Power layered on power, ugly and loud, each one demanding to be seen. Their eyes lock on her at once. There's no confusion. No hesitation. Only recognition. So the myth breathes, one of them sneers, circling the stones like a predator testing a fence. I thought she'd be taller. Another laughs. Or less broken. The words hit harder than claws. Abomination. Curse. Walking extinction. They toss the names casually, like they've been waiting years to finally say them out loud. Like her existence alone offends them. Her hands shake. The silver fire surges, wild and furious, screaming to be unleashed. She clamps down on it with everything she has. Not yet. Not like this. One alpha steps forward, eyes cutting to the man beside her. You were warned, he says coldly. This place was sealed for a reason. He doesn't flinch. So was her fate. That earns a snarl. The council's judgment stands, another growls. Hand her over. Now. You've done your duty bringing her here. Duty. The word twists something deep in her chest. She looks at him then. Really looks. His jaw is tight, muscles coiled beneath his skin. He's standing between her and them without making a show of it, but she knows what it costs him. She knows how this ends for wolves who defy councils. Choose, the first alpha says, voice sharp with satisfaction. The pack or the monster. The grove holds its breath. Time stretches thin and fragile. She waits. She hates herself for waiting. For one terrible heartbeat, he hesitates. It's not fear. It's calculation. Years of leadership weighing lives against each other, instinct fighting obligation. That pause, barely there, barely human, is enough. Something inside her breaks cleanly. She steps back before he can speak, before hope can finish rooting itself where it doesn't belong. The silver fire obeys her for once, folding inward as she turns away from him and the grove and everything it promised. I won't be the reason you fall, she says quietly. Not to them. To him. He spins toward her. That's not what this is. She smiles, small and empty. It always is. The rival alphas move, sensing victory. She doesn't wait to be taken. She moves fast, slipping through a gap she shouldn't be able to see, the grove parting just long enough to let her go. Don't, he calls after her. She doesn't stop. The forest swallows her whole, branches tearing at her skin, snow blinding and sharp. The howls rise again behind her, not hunting this time, but triumphant. The sound doesn't scare her. It hardens her. She runs until her lungs scream, and the silver fire roars unchecked, lighting her veins from the inside. She doesn't fight it anymore. She lets it burn, lets it remind her why she survived when everyone else didn't. They wanted a sacrifice. They wanted a monster. She slows at the edge of a cliff, breath steaming in the dark, the storm roaring approval around her. For the first time, she doesn't feel small. She feels dangerous. Her vow settles deep, quiet, and unbreakable. If they want a monster. She lifts her head, silver light bleeding into her eyes. She'll decide what kind. Days pass before he finds her. By then, the storm inside her has scorched everything it touched. She lies in a narrow cave carved deep into the mountain's spine, the air thick with smoke and stone dust. Her clothes are torn, edges blackened. Her skin bears thin silver burns that pulse faintly with each shallow breath. The fire inside her hasn't gone out, it's coiled tight, angry and exhausted, barely under control. She doesn't hear him arrive. Not until the cave fills with his scent, pine, frost, and something steady beneath it. Her eyes snap open. The silver flares, instinct sharp and panicked. She scrambles backward, pressing herself against the cold wall, teeth bared in warning. "Stop," he says quietly. Not a command. A plea. He looks worse than she remembers. Shadows hollow his eyes. Blood stains his sleeve, dried and dark. He must have fought to get here. Maybe still is. "You shouldn't have followed me," she rasps. "I didn't follow," he replies, kneeling slowly, carefully, as if approaching something fragile. "I searched." Her laugh is bitter. Same thing. He doesn't argue. He sets a small pack on the stone between them and opens it with deliberate calm. Clean cloth. Salve. Water. No restraints. No weapons drawn. "I won't touch you unless you let me," he says. The silver fire writhes, uncertain. Her body aches too much to run. Slowly, reluctantly, she nods once. He tends her wounds in silence. His hands are warm, steady, never lingering where they shouldn't. Each careful touch pulls her back into herself, away from the edge she's been standing on for days. The pain eases. Her breathing evens out against her will. "I hesitated," he says suddenly, voice rough. "And I will regret that for the rest of my life." She stiffens. "Don't. I need you to hear it," he continues. "Not because I deserve forgiveness. Because you deserve the truth." He ties the last bandage, then leans back, giving her space again. "I was raised to believe control was mercy. That power unused was weakness. Every choice I make, I'm afraid it's one step closer to becoming the kind of alpha they fear." She swallows hard. The cave feels smaller. "I'm afraid," she admits, voice barely there, "that if I let go even once, I won't stop. That I'll become exactly what they said I am." The confession hangs between them, raw and unguarded. Moonlight spills into the cave mouth, pale and soft, painting them in silver and shadow. The world feels far away here. No councils. No packs. Just two broken souls breathing in the same quiet. He shifts closer, slow enough that she can stop him. She doesn't. Their knees almost touch. Heat builds, not wild, not consuming. Controlled. Careful. Dangerous in its restraint. His gaze drops to her mouth. Her breath catches. For a heartbeat, the silver fire hums not in fury, but recognition. The pull is undeniable. Ancient. Intimate. They lean in. So close she can feel his breath. So close it terrifies her. She pulls back first. "If we cross that line," she whispers, "there's no going back." "I know. Everything after will hurt more." "I know," he repeats. He lifts his hand, stopping just short of her cheek. "I don't see your power," he murmurs. "I see your choice. Every time you hold back. Every time you don't." Her eyes burn. Not with fire. With tears she refuses to let fall. The moment breaks softly, like something precious set down instead of dropped. Outside, the wind howls again, distant and restless. They sit together in the quiet, knowing deep down that this fragile peace is only the breath before the storm. The betrayal comes quietly. That's the cruelest part. It begins with a voice she almost trusted, carried on the night air just outside the cave. A signal. A phrase spoken too carefully. She feels it before she understands it, the silver fire recoiling, then surging like it's been stabbed. Too late. The cave erupts with sound. Stone cracks. Wolves flood the entrance in a blur of fur and iron. She fights, instinct taking over, silver heat lashing outward in wild arcs, but exhaustion drags at her limbs. Hands clamp down on her arms. Shackles snap shut around her wrists, cold and rune-etched, drinking in her power just enough to hurt. She roars. It echoes uselessly off stone. They drag her into the open under a sky that feels too wide, too uncaring. Torches blaze. Faces crowd in. Familiar ones. Wolves who once shared her fire, her food, her silence. None of them meet her eyes. The platform stands in the center of the clearing, carved from old stone. Execution stone. She knows it. Everyone does. They force her to her knees. The council steps forward, robes heavy with authority stolen from fear. One elder raises a staff, voice ringing out so all can hear. She must die for us to live. The words hit harder than any blow. They speak of prophecy like a weapon, twisting it into something sharp and simple. They call her a necessary ending. A sacrifice. A mercy. Her chest caves in. This is why her family begged. This is why they burned. The chains bite deeper as her power surges in response, silver light leaking through the runes, cracking the ground beneath her knees. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Fear flashes. Satisfaction follows. She's losing control, someone shouts. No, she whispers, voice shaking. You're killing it. Her heart breaks open, raw and exposed. Not because they're afraid of her. Because they always were. Because she hoped, stupidly, that someone might stand up and say enough. No one does. Until the air splits. A roar tears through the clearing, powerful enough to silence the crowd in an instant. He crashes through the outer ring of wolves, bloodied and furious, eyes locked on her like the world has narrowed to this single moment. Stop, he commands. They hesitate. That heartbeat is all it takes. She looks at him, chained and kneeling, and something inside her finally gives way. Not the fire. The hope. Her scream rips free, full of grief and fury and everything she's been holding back since the night her family died. The ground answers. Stone shatters. Light explodes upward in a column of silver fire. The chains melt, runes screaming as they fail. Wolves are thrown back, scrambling, terrified. The execution stone splits clean down the center. She rises. Not as a sacrifice. Not as a monster. As truth unleashed. And in that blinding moment, the world understands what it has done. The silver fire does not burn her. It knows her. It wraps around her body like a second skin, lifting her from the shattered stone as the ground continues to split beneath her feet. Light pours from her veins, from the mark at her spine, from the scream still tearing its way out of her chest. The crowd scatters in panic, wolves scrambling back as the air turns sharp and electric. She feels them then. Not as memories. Not as ghosts. As voices. Ancient. Layered. Steady. They rise inside her roar, weaving through it, shaping it into something vast and terrible and true. Mothers. Fathers. Warriors who stood where she stands now and fell so she could rise. Their strength floods her limbs. Their grief sharpens her resolve. The sky fractures overhead. Clouds tear apart as if clawed open from within, moonlight spilling down in blinding sheets. Thunder rolls without sound. The world bends, forced to acknowledge what has awakened at its center. She lands lightly on broken stone, feet bare, silver fire curling around her like living flame. Her wounds seal. Her breath steadies. The chaos inside her snaps into alignment, no longer wild, no longer afraid. She stands. Not as a queen. Not as a monster. As reckoning. Wolves freeze where they are, caught between instinct and terror. Some drop to their knees without realizing it. Others bare their teeth, shaking, desperate to hold on to the lies that kept them safe. She looks at them all. And she does not slaughter. Her gaze is enough. The fire responds to her judgment, surging toward those who raised blades against children, those who spoke death as law, those who watched families burn and called it balance. The ground blackens beneath their feet. Heat licks their skin, close enough to promise, not yet to destroy. Look at me, her voice carries, layered with the echo of the ancestors. It is not loud. It does not need to be. They look. You called me extinction, she says. But you were the ones killing your future. The council trembles. One elder stumbles back, staff clattering to the stone. Another lifts his hands, pleading, sweat pouring down his face. This isn't what the prophecy meant, he gasps. She tilts her head. Silver fire dances in her eyes. You don't get to tell my story anymore. Behind her, she feels him. He stands at the edge of the devastation, battered and bleeding, staring at her like he's seeing the truth of the world for the first time. Pride wars with fear in his gaze. Relief cuts through both. She meets his eyes for a heartbeat. He does not look away. The fire steadies. Then a slow clap cuts through the silence. Measured. Deliberate. A figure steps forward from the shadows beyond the broken circle, untouched by flame, untouched by fear. His smile is calm. Satisfied. At last, he says, voice smooth as polished bone. The Emberborn wakes. The ancestors recoil inside her. Not in fear. In warning. She turns toward him, power coiling tight and ready. You knew. He inclines his head. I ensured it. The truth lands heavy. He is not surprised. He is not afraid. He has been waiting for this moment with patience sharpened into cruelty. Pax needed a monster, he continues, eyes gleaming. Councils needed a threat. I simply gave them one. The fire around her flares, answering the fury rising in her chest. You killed my family. He smiles wider. I freed you. The ground cracks between them. She takes one step forward, silver fire roaring approval, the ancestors surging behind her like a tide ready to break. The wolves watching know this is no longer about survival. This is about truth. This is about judgment. She lifts her chin, power settling fully into her bones at last. I am not your sacrifice, she says, voice steady and absolute. And I am not your weapon. The sky rumbles, moonlight sharpening, the world holding its breath. The real enemy stands revealed. And she is ready. The fire settles, but it does not fade. It breathes with her now, slow and steady, like it has finally found its home. The clearing is silent in the way only truth can force silence. No arguments left, no lies brave enough to speak. Wolves stand frozen between awe and terror, staring at what they helped create and tried to destroy. She feels every gaze on her. Some are afraid. Some are ashamed. A few are hopeful. That frightens her more than the fear ever did. Because fear is easy. Fear draws clean lines. Hope asks questions no one is ready to answer. She lowers her hands, silver fire curling inward, restrained by choice, not force. The ancestors quiet inside her, watching. Waiting. They will not guide her steps. This path is hers alone. She thinks of her family. Of the hands she couldn't hold onto. Of the voices that went silent so hers could rise. Her chest tightens, but she does not break. Not now. Not anymore. She looks at the wolves who called her abomination, curse, extinction. She wonders how many of them would have done the same if they'd been born with her fire instead of fear. She wonders how many would have survived it. And she wonders about you. If you had stood in that crowd. If you had heard the prophecy twisted into a blade. If you had seen a girl kneeling in chains while the world decided she was too dangerous to live. Would you have feared her? Would you have called for her death and told yourself it was necessary? Or would you have followed her into the fire, trusting that power doesn't make someone evil, only choice does? She exhales slowly, silver light softening around her like embers after a blaze. This is not the end. It is the moment before the world changes, when every side must decide where they stand. Because stories like this are never really about monsters. They're about who we become when we're afraid. And if this story awakens something inside you, something fierce, something aching, something that refuses to stay quiet, subscribe to Moonbound Werewolf Romance Stories. Because here, we don't fear the fire. We become it. The clearing cools, but the echoes of silver fire linger, humming faintly in the broken stones, the scorched earth, and the chilled night air. Smoke curls from the fissures, drifting lazily toward the fractured moon, carrying with it the scent of burnt pine, iron, and something ancient, something older than the packs, older than the councils, older than fear itself. She stands alone, yet not alone. The ancestors murmur through her veins, quiet now, satisfied but watchful. Her chest rises and falls, a rhythm both human and something more, a pulse that reminds the night. She survived, she claimed her power, and she chose her path. Yet the forest does not forgive. Shadows linger where the fire's light did not reach. Movement schemes the edges of vision, soft, calculated, deliberate. Not all eyes in the darkness are afraid. Some are watching, waiting, measuring what she has become. She senses it before she hears it. A presence that doesn't belong to the wind, the snow, or the trembling earth. A ripple in the silver hum. A breath in the dark that does not belong to her. And then the voice comes. Soft, low, threaded with shadow. She was never meant to stand alone. It doesn't demand. It doesn't threaten. Yet it drags the words across the air with gravity, pressing into her chest, settling in her bones. Not a warning. Not a question. A statement. A prophecy unfinished. A secret waiting in the dark for the moment the world thinks it is done. She tightens her fists, silver fire licking at her skin once more, not wild now, not furious. Controlled. A whisper of what can become if the world continues to push, continues to test, continues to forget that power is never silent and choice is never final. Her eyes scan the shadows beyond the clearing, but the figure does not show itself. Only that voice, dripping certainty and patience, as if the night itself has taken form to speak to her. The wind moves differently now, curling around her with intent, carrying the faint scent of wolves she does not know. Shapes flicker at the edge of vision, unseen yet present. A storm, not of snow, but of inevitability, waits. She does not flinch. She does not speak. She only stands, shoulders squared, chest rising with quiet fury and unbroken resolve. Every heartbeat thunders like a drum of defiance. Every breath whispers a vow. They tried to cage her, to break her, to erase her, but none of that matters now. The ancestors stir within her, murmuring their approval. The fire beneath her skin brightens, a steady burn, a pulse of life and choice. Not for vengeance, not for bloodlust, but for reckoning. For what is right. From the darkness, the voice fades, leaving only the echo of the words, a promise of trials still to come. She was never meant to stand alone. And for the first time, she understands, her story is far from over. The night holds secrets, enemies, and allies she cannot yet name. The packs will rise, the councils will whisper, the world will tremble, but she will meet it all. She lifts her chin, eyes reflecting the fractured moonlight, silver fire coiling in response to the unseen gaze. The night is hers, but it is also theirs. Every shadow beyond the clearing carries a question, every rustle in the trees a warning. The Emberborn has awakened. And the story is only just beginning. The screen of the night closes slowly, smoke and shadow swallowing the clearing, leaving only the faint hum of power and the whispering promise that nothing in this world is finished until she chooses it to be. Fade to black.